Okay.
It is going.
All right. Sweet.
Wow, we are high tech.
Yeah.
Should we start with any announcements or deep just notes we want to share before we get into sort of our creative group think process?
I think what I might do is just quickly speak to the recording.
Sure.
And say, lovely to see you, Jason in Redmond, Andrew in Southern Oregon, Heather and Amy, who are hiding because they're shy, in Sweet Home. And
Yes, so shy.
Maybe Garrett in the future.
And then around the table we have Oliver, Chris, Keegan, Brendan, Shelley, who's moderating for us today, Kevin and myself, and there's a good chance that Marjorie will be turning up, and maybe Dan too. Oh, maybe Dan too. Okay.
He said he didn't want to come.
She's just in a burrito line behind me. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always the case, isn't it?
All right. So.
Well, okay. Well, I think I've been, watching Agrarian sharing in the prop fair for a couple of years, and I just really admire the work that this group does. It's like so entrenched in all this history and community, and solid organizers who have been with it for a long time, and then new blood that comes through and filters and contributes. So I am excited to help right now, something I can do. And what we determined last meeting is that we're at a great point to kind of try to hammer out a mission and values statement. So I have a little process for us to go through to kind of draft those things up. I think it's really important that, the mission and values of the organization kind of reflects the whole. So we should remember that there is just like a limited demographic here in the room. But also something I did not think about how to share this with people on the internet, but we're just going to be writing and brainstorming some things on the piece of paper so we can figure out how to include everybody on the other side too in a second. But firstly, just to get our brains working and to get something down on paper, I was just hoping that we could make a list of values that we think we share, values that this organization can probably get behind. And like I said, it's a draft, it's a brainstorm, but what I'm gonna do is make a list of things here that you guys shout out. So what do you think, Nick? What's the shared value of the Agrarian Sharing Network?
One of the mantras that I've always expressed right from the beginning is very simply a friend to all and an enemy of none.
Love that. Okay, what's another one?
That it's as much about the plants as about the people. Does that sound all right?
We'll get to that part later. Right now, it's okay just to like.
Or what do we say? Sorry.
We're just brainstorming a list, and then later we'll pick them apart.
And I would say, and I would also say it's about the people as much as it's about the plants.
Yeah, maybe the other way around.
Well, no, both together.
Okay, we're not editing.
Okay.
We're just brainstorming.
Well, yeah, we're hive mind bulwark integrated.
I see that.
So
about the plants as the people.
Heather, Amy, they've got their microphone muted. If you want to speak up, Jason.
Yeah. Amy likes to mute me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He just keeps talking.
Okay, so if you do want to speak up, please do.
Any shared values of the
Great.
ASN?
Collaborative. Decentralized.
Regenerative.
Neighborhood.
Bioregional.
Bioregional.
Resilient.
Yeah. Protecting biodiversity. And sharing.
Free.
I totally missed one just now. Regional neighborhood.
Resilient.
That was the big. I was thinking about how big that one was, which is why I forgot
Resilient and sharing and
I said hello. I said free.
yeah. Inclusive. Transparent. Not actually transparent.
Is food security up there?
What's that?
Resourceful.
Resourceful.
Spartan.
We're just coming up with a list of values that we have in common. We'll pick them apart later.
How about Spartan and resourceful? Because we make a lot out of a little.
Okay, Spartan.
Lean.
S-P-A-R-T-A-N. T-A-N. Yeah, T-A-N.
T-A-N. Spartan.
Creative.
What about food security?
Are we creative?
What about the Haas sisters?
Creative. How's that word?
Great. A+, teacher.
Thanks, boss.
How about Schwartz over there?
You just shut up. No, look at that.
Coming back. Oh,
Hi,
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Damn it.
Hello. Shoot.
Coming up live from an unknown bunker.
Okay, so far we've got cuss words from you, Andrew.
Perfect.
Andrew, we're coming up with a list of values that the group has in common. We have a bunch out already. You might have missed it, but what's some?
I did.
Well, what comes to mind for you for ASN? What does everybody share in common?
Let's see. Just kind of the
Shared values. So collaborative, decentralized, resilient, food security, creative.
There aren't any wrong answers, but don't get it wrong, okay?
yeah, there's a lot of pressure here now.
You want to phone a friend?
Yeah. Resiliency is a good one. Just kind of
Yeah.
food security.
Great.
Throw it out there, girl. The teachers are throwing in the word education.
Yeah. Very good.
We're into educating people about all the stuff that we don't know about.
Sounds par for course, right?
But we can pretend we do.
Sorry, that's me.
Well, I know the word that I'm trying to come up with is like servant or serving.
Service.
Of service.
Service.
Oh, service is good. Yeah.
Put down friendship.
Yeah.
How about humility? That's a good one, right? Being humble.
I don't know. I don't feel
Don't know
like
if it fits. Most of it's weird, but
I'm just kidding.
What about some?
Went and bragged about it.
Maybe something about delicious food.
We like to eat.
Yeah, but I mean the conversation are always about this is the best tasting apple variety, and these are the most delicious grapes. You know.
It's about, I mean, it's something that reflects that it's about quality rather than quantity.
Targeted.
Bink, bink.
yeah, sustainability up there.
No. Do we need it?
Yeah.
I feel like 10 years ago that would have been like the first word that we're like,
Yeah.
well, sustainability.
I think you're generative. But yeah.
How about generative instead of regenerative? Generative
Generative.
Yeah.
instead of regenerative.
Yeah.
It's in
They
there.
can hear you though.
I know. Just garbled.
That's not really.
Amy, are you prepared to offer up more than a conspiratorial whisper?
At
She's-
this point, no, I'm still playing with the camera and
She's-
I'm trying to support
She's
Heather.
kind of cursing at the computer and not being able to figure out how we can't get it so you can see us.
I told Andrew earlier that it's going to kind of be like an Agrarian Hollywood Squares.
The bar square is defaulting. Our square is really sad.
You know, there's a feature within Zoom itself where you can turn it on and off. As well
Is that
as,
what you did?
okay.
I don't think so. I thought you said that.
Cause see,
Hide self.
see now we can see ourselves.
Oh, okay. Try one of these dots. Try one of these dots.
Did you write anything else down?
Oh, I think I like that.
You might-
Oh, we don't have to
Okay,
see this,
so
right?
show self view. Go back to us. There.
Okay,
Okay, now what are these other dots?
that's full screen.
I think eco-cultural.
Yes, sir. Keegan said community, which is not
Yeah.
I like that. Eco-cultural.
Yeah.
All right.
And then I values. Like, would I mean, one of the ways for example, I don't know if there's a word for this, but one of the things I
Turn off my video.
do
No, hide non-video. Spot video.
frame our efforts as a coherent response to climate chaos. Responsive. Yeah.
And even more effect. I want to
That, yeah.
It might be good to put climate change up there somewhere too, though, so we remember that, because that is true.
want to touch your
That's
screen.
true. That's something that's been a narrative since the beginning.
You focus
Well,
on
resiliency.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got resiliency up here, service, food security,
repeating that.
good list.
Okay.
Those good things to stand behind.
What's this?
You know, usually organizations will have a mission statement and then they can boil all this down into like 5 or 6 truths that we hold to be evident.
Projecting two different
So,
things.
that's just something we could do later. But look, this is your starting point.
Could you speak up a little bit, Shannon?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We could try to boil it down a little bit right now, or we could like use this list and move towards our mission statement. What do you guys want to do?
I thought when you first signed in, you could.
I thought it might be good if we bind that, so at least it looks more coherent and we can collapse some or combine some of the associated terminologies that we put up.
Well, here, let's do this. I'm going to read them out loud, and as I go, put the 3 to 5 of these that are most important to you on a piece of paper, and we'll kind of take a tally to see which ones are most popular. So,
Did you hear that?
Yep.
folks?
Yep.
Okay.
Top 3 or 5. Yep.
I'm going to read these out loud. And as I go, just take note of 3 to 5 of these which are most important to you that you would see on a final values statement. So what we have here is equality, not quantity. Friend to all, enemy to none. As much about the plants as the people. Collaborative, decentralized, regenerative, neighborhood, regional, biodiversity, resilient, service, friendship, eco-cultural, humility, climate change, intergenerational, adaptive, beauty, responsive, free, inclusive, lean, transparent, food security, creative, protecting biodiversity, sustainability, integrity, community, education, learning what we don't know now, and generative. So make a list of 3 to 5 of these that just really capture your heart and that you think other people would want to stand behind you with.
I can turn it off. So everybody can access it. In case you want to run a barcode. Nope. So which ones did you like? This is really broke. Out of all the ones you just read. Oh,
Let's go around the world. We're going to go around the world and just let me know. And I'm going to a little dot next to what you wrote down. You want to start, Ryan?
For me?
Yeah, what stood
Oh,
out?
I put them all into one sentence.
Oh,
That's what I was doing.
that's actually activity number 2, you guys.
Okay.
Well, that's
all
fine.
right.
We can
I'm
do
just
it.
kidding. Let's see. I have biodiversity,
Okay.
food security, community.
I started at C.
Do we have that? Can I make it up? Community.
I did.
Yeah, you underlined it.
Right bottom, right hand side.
Keep going.
Collaborative. And free.
Again, what are yours?
Responsive. I think I was kind of grouping them in my head, like the intergenerational, inclusive, and community, like all 3 of those things. But
Okay.
I guess inclusive might be like education,
Mhm.
food security, and
Okay.
resilient.
Great. Thanks. Chris, what do you got?
I kind of did the similar thing in terms of combining, and so bear with me.
Mhm.
I did put a friend to all, enemy of none. Really like that phrase, and that it is plant people oriented. So that one right below it, and I agree with and I wrote this down for later, thinking about this mission statement, but the intergenerational, inclusive, and community. I like that you combine those 2, but intergenerational is the one that I particularly chose.
Okay.
And then I actually combined response to climate change by fostering food security.
Okay, so responsive and food security.
Sorry, and obviously, and then I thought you were also right about collaborative, like in terms of like, it's really hard to choose the final one. They're all really, there's a lot of really important things like education.
Yeah.
Mine was friend to all, enemy of none, resilient,
We love that one.
and responsive.
I don't understand it.
You have 2 more?
No, it was only 3.
3 to 5.
3 to 5.
I settled with 3.
Mhm.
All right, Hollywood Squares.
It's
Jason,
the computer's turn.
Jason, how about you?
Okay. I wrote down friend to all, enemy to none. In my mind, that also bundles with people being as important as the plants, and community, quality over quantity, both in terms of genetics and in terms of the events, and resilience, which kind of gets it, to my mind, the issue of being intergenerational and facing climate chaos, and food security, and then education and free.
Oh, could you write genetics somewhere? I think that's also, that word's good. Genetics.
Does anyone want to retroactively add genetics to their favorites list?
It's just something in the background, I guess. How about you, Andrew?
This square's got collaborative, resilience, intergenerational, food security, protecting biodiversity, and education.
Thank you.
Ha sisters?
Yep, we're here. You want to go live? I don't
All right,
know.
so we got 6 to 10.
All right. 6 to 10. How
Yes.
about education and biodiversity and resilience and service?
She's got to mark them. Slow down.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry. I was just reading down the list.
She's got to mark them.
I got
Did you
it.
catch up?
I got it.
Friendship. That was Heather. I'm not particularly friendly. Intergenerational. Adaptive.
Now I can't see the reaction to
Sorry.
my words.
And then, yeah, we kind of joined our group together.
It's like in real life.
As sisters
In real
would.
life. As we do.
As we do.
They don't know we're
Oh, we didn't get we didn't get everybody over here?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, we
us.
did.
We got all Hollywood squares.
Okay. Got the squares. Margaret?
A lot of those things to me seem really similar.
Yeah.
So I kind of grouped them in their similarities a little bit. So biodiversity, which could also be genetic diversity, resilience and adaptive are sort of similar, educational and generative, and then service, which is inclusive and collaborative, and free, hopefully, and then food security.
Thank you. Nicholas, you only get 5.
Why did you just say that to me?
Because I had 6. You're so
Friends to all
good.
and enemy of none, which I think is the same as inclusive. Free, may be a better way to say it, free or service. I like the way you combine that. Collaborative, because it seems to be the essential note of what we are. Community, I think ultimately, as I said, we're about people as much as we are about plants. And then the notion of responsive and, or generative, this whole notion of climate change is definitely one that I'd say responsive. Yeah.
So I combined a few also into sort of phrases, but friend to all, enemy of none, I really like. Protection and dissemination of biodiversity, so biodiversity and food security in relation to climate change, so the resilience goes in with that as well. And then education and collaboration.
Great. Okay. I like that they're kind of get pulled out there when we do it all together.
I want to take a picture of that.
Yeah.
I'm going to post a mind map of the
I kind of recorded the groupings that it seemed like we shared. So I had like 3 categories. I don't know.
Yeah,
if you want to
great.
do that.
Shelly, do you want to add yours though
Um,
to what you believe in? Might as well. Yeah. You're a member of the group too. And now with more Dan. So Dan, you get to choose one of the most important values.
about resilience, the adaptability, and like I guess I didn't write down the taste part ever, but that's like big for me. Inclusivity, and education. I think, did I already say food security? Because food security. So, you know, mark it once, mark it twice, whatever. Great.
Dan?
We can move forward.
Okay, I take one more picture of that. Dan, you want to add your 5 real quick, or 3 to 5? Like what you feel is most important?
I think we have a lot of information here.
Okay.
He'll be able to contribute moving forward. Okay. You want to try to boil these down a little bit?
Yeah, does anybody oppose that?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. I've got in one bubble here, responsive, food security, biodiverse. Oh, sorry. Responsive, food security, biodiverse. Resilient, and then climate change.
So you're saying those are kind of
They all go together.
thematically
Genetics too.
biodiverse and genetics.
And dissemination, as you use the word dissemination.
Generative.
Well, what else you got, Ian?
I think generative would be good in there too. Yeah. The next category, I would say, I'm looking at intergenerational, inclusive, community, friends to all. third category, collaborative, education, service, and 3.
On the second category, can we add neighborhood?
You know, we don't have on here is justice, and like for me, that's kind of fits with justice as well.
And then since you said taste at the end, I would add, like, maybe that's a fourth category is taste and like beauty, like the
Art.
Yeah,
The
art,
aesthetics of the whole thing.
aesthetics. That would be number 4. Was that
Taste, beauty, and
kind of a subjective?
I feel like we're gonna need like a coat of arms or something.
And they all overlap for sure.
Mm-hmm. What's in the center of it all? An apple. Beauty, art. Oh, see, that's something we won't be able to agree on, right? Which variety goes on the logo?
We sort of kind of have a logo.
Yeah, great. I was just
It's a picture of Lodi, isn't it?
Which fruit are we gonna add?
Well, it's sort of an apple tree, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bottom one.
Hide Sophia.
Can you add a neighborhood to number 2?
apple or a quince.
If we started it, never mind.
And bioregion.
It's in the right click.
And number 2, bioregional.
all right. That's cool.
What about we've got a one dealing with there's one more like can I say that again? It'd be like service, service, education, creative, and
That's our,
We have collaborative service.
oh, okay, never mind,
education.
never mind.
Is there anything else that's crucial up here that
Yeah,
we're missing here?
Our justice, justice, humility, and there was one other moral quality.
What's the
friend tab?
What's the point of that particular page, Shelley?
This one?
Yeah.
Well, that would,
We can have a list of values that we get behind. Like
I think we're grouping them.
those would boil down into our mission statement.
Oh, so we're just taking stuff off that and putting it on there.
We're boiling it down.
More into like tighter categories, I think.
So we can have a sentence on each of these so that people know that the values that this group comes behind, and they can say like, I take those up. I believe in those things too.
Maybe at number 1, Spartan, because that's part of being
That's the apple we need.
Recorded.
yeah, that's Spartan / lean or whatever. Whatever we had.
Does it detract from what we just did for you? You look concerned.
Somehow I don't feel that we're catching a lot of the character of what's on that list over there. It seems to have been a loss rather than a gain or a concentration in some way, shape or form. I'm not entirely sure.
Number 3 could also be transparent. Transparent.
What we were doing maybe is grouping our similar values that are there. We've all kind of distilled the 20 or so down to maybe 10, and now we're saying which ones would fit together in a group.
I feel like
So if there's some that's missing here from there, we can take this stuff that have like 5 or 6 hash marks there and put them in which category we think that's where I got it.
Yeah, and
So-
if we can have like a statement of value and describe these things in 1 or 2 sentences, that's in addition to having a mission statement. It gives a more well-rounded thing. This is less short than a mission statement. Mission is like bam. So it's good to start here, and then we're gonna pull it together even tighter into a couple draft mission statements, I think.
I have a question, just real quick. How did some of those values get more hash marks than others? Did you all vote on it?
we voted on it.
We all picked 3 to 5.
yeah, we just
Resonated with us, and we went around and read them off.
How are we doing? Is this feel good to everybody?
Can you add transparent to number 3? And I think then we have Eco-culturalism is like,
I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, I use that term and I get this oftentimes as a rolling of the eyes, but it's sort of the term eco-cultural or eco-social is sort of one of the few words that actually sort of synthesize the notion that it's about the people as much as it's about the plants, and about the plants and as much about the people, and both feed and support one another. So, I mean, I use it not to be clever, but simply because it's one of the few words I know that works to do that.
I only make fun because you use it a lot, but I'm aligned with you on the same concept. Yeah. And you often use the word, you often pair it with the word coherency, which I think is important because having a culture that's grounded in ecology and intermixed amongst is coherent, and what we have is incoherent.
Or whether we say ecologically coherent culture or cultural coherent something. I think that's a crucial part of the deeper part of what it is we say. And maybe there might be a way to bring it in terms of a sentence as distinguished rather than one cage.
Yeah, these aren't limited in any way. And what I would suggest is we nominate like two or three people to work together to then translate this into those couple of statements away from this meeting. And then we can return to it and see what it looks like with a couple of people that the group trusts to do that translation, like after they've spent the time to dig through it and make it feel like it fits.
Are you going to be sharing those with the photos with the...
Yeah, sending down and also say utilize information. This is kind of pouring out from our minds together.
How do you guys feel about moving on to the next thing? Okay.
Yep.
So we're gonna have a little quiet time.
Do we get to draw?
No pictures, just you can draw, right? But what I was hoping is if everyone would take a couple of minutes and write 3 versions of a mission statement.
Boy.
So a mission statement is often an action. So, to build and create a more sustainable world, to collaborate on increased food security, and coherence in our society. So just take a couple minutes and for yourself write about 3, maybe you can just get to 1. Maybe you're the type of person that writes a bunch of them and then narrows it down, but you can have 2 or 3 shots at a mission statement. And so
in 2 minutes.
Until you get antsy.
This is something that I put everything on a Word doc and then begin writing out each section and then recombining them so they come back down, and then take that and like cut it into a third and take that and cut it into half and
And this is what we're doing that with 12 people. This is fun.
All right. How much time do we have?
5 minutes.
Y'all get that?
Okay? Yeah. 5 minutes. Take.
I need more Swiss Miss, I think.
Did our Hollywood squares get the next thing that we're doing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a value statement, that's a mission statement.
we temporarily put those back on the whiteboard?
Yeah.
I see a lot of people rubbernecking. Thank you.
Take another minute, wrap it up. Okay, so you guys are going to get a chance to share your mission statements and even maybe propose yours to the group. But first I want to do a little bit more just word work. And so if you don't mind grabbing a Post-it thing in front of you. So take a book of Post-its, or you can even split them up more. They just peel apart. And on each Post-it, write one of the key or elemental words from your mission statement. And we're going to put those up here and play with them. So one per notepad. So grab your just put your mission statement, the most important or elemental words onto Post-its, and so you might have a couple of Post-its, and so send them up here and write them big if you can, because we're going to use them to put together.
I don't understand.
So look at your
keywords in your mission statement. Put one on.
Or not combine all the keywords.
Okay.
Well, and we're going to do multiple.
Yeah. So one word per Post-it. So here's my verbs. I've got leave. I've got exchange. Here's a noun, adjective. I'm going to put that over here. Collaborative. Here's another noun, biodiversity.
Can someone write a Post-it for me?
Yeah, we can do that, Andrew. Yeah.
You're not.
I got protect and resilient.
Okay, I'll put you down.
Thank you.
Get your drone going. Send it up here.
Fly it on over. Be there shortly.
Cooperative.
Jason?
I got too many words. It's hard to pick. Might have been too long.
Can you stick education on a Post-it for us? Or educate. It could be a verb.
Okay.
I got that one for you, Sharon.
And with some doodle around the edges, then it looks like it really came from me. Make it pretty.
Like that?
Spill some coffee on it.
Yeah. Spill some coffee drops on it. Then you really.
So thanks for sticking with me, guys. I've never
You're
done
doing
this
great.
before.
Good job, sweetheart.
Tasty pie.
Okay.
He's got another bottle.
Regenerative. Where's my?
And these should be single words, not a phrase.
Yeah, that's right. Because
Okay.
we're gonna build a mission. See if we can put one together that everyone. No. Now we're just gonna. Well, we are.
I think we got them all.
Knowledge, education, dissemination. Okay.
Who wrote small writing?
Knowledge.
Do we need to write some more for y'all?
Collaborative is already. Okay. So.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Does propagation fairs count as one word? Maybe if you hyphenate it.
Yeah, they count as one word.
Yeah.
Okay. And local. Those are my 3 words. There we go. Thank you.
Yep.
Food security. All right. Regenerative.
Incoming.
Local. All right. Crop fairs. Noun. Here. Beautiful. Well, I'm gonna. Oh my god.
Big statement.
Yeah, someone wants to grab up here. Educate. I know that this is a.
Yeah, there's knowledge attributions there.
Doubling up.
That's good.
Yeah,
So double it up if you've done it already. 3. All right. Protect. I know. I think I got the cheap Post-its. Locally grounded. Resilience. Biodiversity. Is there another one here?
Biodiversity, plant diversity. Who wrote that? No, I'm just kidding.
It's all one word. I put all of it together.
You can combine words like the Germans, right?
Yeah.
So who, once we get all these up here, who wants to be the first person to put, the like poetry game when you make, get the magnets on your fridge. So this brings somebody up here to create the first statement. You're already standing, Keegan. You want to put it up?
I'm just gonna go to
They're not all sticky enough.
The goal is to just shuffle these around and make a.
See if we can make a mission statement out of what the group has contributed. So, didn't mean to put you on the spot, but does somebody want to try to make the first sentence out of it?
Are you gonna scribe down below?
Yeah, all right. Collaboratively.
Can you put dissemination, propagate down at the bottom close to each other?
Dissemination, propagation.
Well, I mean, they're kind of
Separate?
Yeah, they're close. They're related.
How about collaboratively sharing for resilience?
Uh-huh.
Or collaborative, yeah.
Uh-huh. Collaboratively.
Wonder if
Or
since they're not
propagate.
sticking on here, that put them out here on the table or something and somebody write
Great.
what it is? Otherwise,
Here we go.
it's constantly
And if this degenerates into anything else, that's fine. Educate, cooperative, protect, support, and promote grassroots plants, regenerative. God, that's such a hard word. Okay, so the first one that you put out, Keegan, was collaboratively share. We share. Was it diversity? Biodiversity.
Resilience. SIL.
Yes. Does somebody else want to try another one? Play the shuffle game. Biodiversity is big. I think collaborative is one of our giants.
I think locally grounded is too. I mean, I might say, you know, that one of the remarkable aspects of what we're doing is that we're fundamentally an integral initiative, marrying green-blooded and red-blooded rounds, marrying the bioregion to the local, and so on and so forth, and pulling together an integrative narrative with words is always going to present challenges. You're always trying to catch something very big.
It can be a little bit run-on and wordy.
Yeah.
So I was trying to write and include as many words on there as possible, but it becomes this big run-on sentence.
Yeah.
And so I can just read mine, and it just includes a whole bunch of those.
Love it. Good.
To enhance education towards stewardship of land and plants, to promote biodiversity, food security. Let's see, to promote biodiversity, resiliency, food security collaboratively through free regional service for all that is resilient and adaptive to future climate changes.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I guess 2 suggestions to the group would be that if we read, maybe first we read what we wrote.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that might all inform us what's on the table that you guys can't now see. And then secondly is that if I pass around a piece of paper, if each of us could legibly write what we wrote on a piece of paper.
Or we could just collect them.
We could just collect them and hand them in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, I mean, for example, we're talking about trying to, maybe a group of us trying to mesh everything into shape. I'd be prepared to say maybe take the pieces of paper away, make a first stab, and then pass the pieces of paper on to someone else who wants to do it.
Sure.
And we can
however, if I
so be careful what you doodle.
However, if still,
I think that one was for you. I'm gonna.
It might have merit if everybody wrote it down on a piece of paper too, because when they did that, they're going to already see the error in a little bit of their mission statement, and it will all be legible and theoretically and stuff like that.
Do you mean go around as a group, read them out loud, and then have another, and then like refine your own and submit that one in?
Well, I just, if we went around and we all communicated what we said, you know, our kind of pure, kind of off the cuff idea that we had, and then separately, as we're just still discussing in idle moments, if people could write what they wrote onto one centralized piece of paper, and then we'll get the digital versions from you guys, right? And then I'll write that and post that along with these 2 pictures and whatever else onto Facebook, and then we can continue from there.
Yeah, great. And if you've already written yours clearly and legibly, I think that's fine to but just write it down so that somebody else can work with it later.
I think this has a lot of potential if we just have some patience to play with this exercise for a while too. And I like the idea of hearing each other's exercise when we did before, and that could really boost this exercise. But I like the idea of playing individual values and
Mhm.
words and actually using our collective
Yeah.
creativity to make something.
I mean, because I think we can have a mission statement that somebody writes and everyone votes and says, yeah, I like that. That's our mission statement. Or we can, a combination. We could also have a mission statement that everyone truly wrote. And so that's partly what my goal was here. But I think we've done a lot of like sharing of ideas. And I just, yeah, I think to hear each other's, let's do that. You want to start with yours? Right? Oh, you just.
Well, I just, yeah.
Could
I
you-
can read
Well, you
it.
read it.
To enhance education towards stewardship of land and plants, to promote biodiversity, food security, collaboratively through free regional service for all that is resilient and adaptive to future climate changes.
I like the addition of adaptability in there.
Yeah, that was something that we hadn't included, but that adaptability does fit in with, the climate chaos narrative, the eco-cultural narrative, the regenerative narrative, and others.
And even just the structure of this organization seems to be designed to be adaptable to the needs of the community as we move forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool.
And Spartan. It fits in with being Spartan.
So
You've
if the-
certainly got that Greek
if-
warrior thing going on, don't you?
If the same person says it multiple times, it doesn't count as the same as word being said by like 10 different people.
She's being very polite.
She has an integral eco-cultural coherent narrative.
Did you write that all by yourself?
No, it mostly comes from the mind of Mr. Rutledge.
Oh.
Are we continuing around?
Yeah. Do you want to read yours next?
Sure. We are eco-cultural stewards. And then a little flowery. Birthing a regenerative culture along nature's lines and in nature's image. Responsive, locally grounded, resilient, collaborative, and
Did you write a bird down?
That's not that late.
All of those things.
Steward, you mean stewarding?
Steward.
Yeah. Ask if we can interrupt the readers because we need to go. That way we're contributing. Well, if you want to read it.
Hey. Someone else want to say what they like about Nick's just now?
Please, I need
To establish and grow a collaborative network of inclusive communities for the protection and free dissemination of knowledge and resilient biodiversity in the face of climate change.
Unless you want to read it, I'm just going to say what's in the
Hey, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
We have hit our time limit. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys come up with. There's some really great ideas, but we have to sign off.
Do you mind sharing your mission?
Sure. I told her to share it before saying what. Heather's got one.
Well, it's kind of there. It's a joint effort. To promote free education to our intergenerational community and to encourage resilience and biodiversity. What do you got there? That was exciting. Just
and
stuff
then
like that.
There's some stuff that I can't read.
But basically, we're really into the educating part, not just because
love
we're
that bit.
teachers, but because we're teachers.
Yeah.
But
they're laughing at us now.
it's
Look at
fine. They can't see what we're doing because there's no camera, so it's okay. We're thumbing Chris
Okay.
and Nick anyways.
Yeah. Any
Aren't you?
comments before we go?
Yes, PM me that.
Okay.
All right. Hey, and we planted the trees at the school, Chris.
Oh, right. Trees
Right.
are all in and everybody's really excited about it.
Great.
Right. All right. Terrific.
All right.
Did you get any photographs?
Yeah, it looks like little sticks
It
on
looks
a
like,
mountainside.
yeah, it looks like sticks in the mud right now.
That's fine.
Okay.
How about
yeah.
action shots? Dig in the holes.
Well, see, that's the problem is there's,
Students in it, so we have to blot out their faces.
Okay.
right.
Wait a second. So is it kind of like the thing where you bury the fish under the corn? You bury the students under the trees?
Just the bad
No
ones.
comment about that.
Right.
Even if you just got a picture of sticks in the ground, getting it up onto the
That's face.
getting it up onto Facebook will just let people know that what we're doing is continuing to happen. So
Yep. We'll see what we can do then.
thank you.
All right. See ya.
Good luck.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, who's next?
What about Andrew or Jason?
Sure.
What you got?
I've got one here. To advance a beautiful, coherent ecological culture in our bioregion by spreading resilient food through assisting free local propagation fairs with, oh, I'm sorry, are you trying to write down what I'm saying?
No.
Oh, good, because I was talking a little fast for that. Okay. Through assisting free local propagation fairs with administration, education, and germplasm.
Would you type that into a Facebook comment underneath the Zoom link?
Sure.
Or just
I'll message.
Jason, just PM me and I'll add it to Heather and Amy's. How about that?
Okay.
And then
Okay.
add everything that's going on in the yellow piece of paper.
Yeah, we'll make them available for everybody.
Okay.
Jason, would you like to read yours out loud?
Oh, that was Jason. You mean Andrew?
Sorry, Andrew.
Switch it up. I had a little more short and sweet. To protect, preserve, and promote genetic biodiversity towards resiliency in future generations.
Nice.
Andrew, could you email me that?
Yep.
A Spartan use of expression.
That counts as a mark for
Brennan.
Yeah, mine's not quite as short and sweet, but I have two here.
Chapter 1.
ASN supports and promotes inclusive community events focusing on collaborative sharing of targeted plant genetics to create a resilient response to biodiversity and food security issues.
Great.
The other one is ASN, as a friend to all and enemy to none,
Ooh.
collaborates with the bioregional communities to support free, inclusive, and educational events dedicated to regenerative, ecocultural coherence and sharing genetic biodiversity.
We're done here. We can go.
If you want to add your.
How about you?
I was trying to, I was keeping it a little shorter and sweeter, but I have 3. Maybe I'll just choose one.
No, they're short and sweet, so you get to do.
Okay. I'll do 3. They're kind of variations of each other. So to connect communities and people with each other and food that supports them. The next one would be to serve our food, or to shape our food. Maybe I'll skip that one. To weave together people, their food, and the ecologies that sustain them.
And I think the fewer words mean the more inclusive words, and so we can say it all, and like less means that our words, mean a lot when we keep them minimal. I like that one.
I also tried to use few words as possible. ASN strives to promote growth and exchange of genetic diversity to grassroots community.
Nice.
Yeah, through grassroots communities.
And then another one just had some keywords I was working on. ASN works to provide access the genetic diversity. So just trying to work in access and
it's my turn.
Yeah.
Article 1, subchapter A. A friend to all, enemy to none. ASN is a cooperative and intergenerational response to climate chaos by working between bioregions to foster ecocultural coherence through education and free dissemination of genetically diverse and appropriate plant materials to communities promoting more decentralized food security and regenerative horticulturalism / agrarianism. Which that's just I just wanted to make sure that I got the concepts in there.
I'm better at drawing pictures. Collecting and sharing tasty plant diversity amongst friends to increase resiliency in the face of challenges.
Well,
So a couple things I've heard. A lot of the statements, or part of a lot of the statements, are who we are and not what our mission is. And a mission statement really needs to be what we're trying to accomplish, not, and we are this kind of person in this kind of group and that. So that might help boil things down a little bit, focus on the mission. If you can start the sentence with ASN's mission is to, and that'll, and then we can go into detail of who we are and all the rest of it farther in, but the mission statement is like, all right, what are these guys trying to do?
yeah, you could be like, is our mission to steward? Is our mission to educate? Is our mission to assist or advance? You can get real bare bones with that. Because I think the what that you're talking about, Kevin, is like pretty clear. There's really clear values of like what we want the results of our actions to be. But yeah, literally, what is it?
What do we do?
Providing.
We share.
what do we want to do? You know, maybe that's different from what we're doing.
Yeah, what are we hoping to accomplish?
Yeah.
And there might, I don't know if there's a distinction between what ASN does as this core entity and what the propagation fairs do. But there may be some distinction between the mission of a single propagation fair and the mission of ASN. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
Because maybe ASN also assists, have somebody put an orchard in at an elementary school.
Yeah, I mean, the propagation fairs are a means to accomplish our mission.
And I mean, there's also the, like ASN supports propagation affairs, but there's the discussion of which propagation fairs does ASN support and how much support do they give, and do they try to help propagation fairs get on their feet? And if the mission is getting propagation fairs to stand on their own feet and then providing them with supplemental support, that's like the broader mission is distributing this plant material, but the specific mission might be facilitating propagation fairs, or maybe the mission is broader of this core group of facilitating propagation fairs and helping schools plant trees and whatever. But, and I'm not saying that I know what that scope is, but there's, this organization operates at and facilitates different scopes. And there could probably be clarity about that.
Well, I think
maybe.
something definite about the group is it's a network. It's in the name, it's a network. And for me, that's about connecting and empowering, because people can access food security. It's right in the neighborhood, you know, there's trees, and we want to connect people to their ability to be food secure. And so I think the connection and collaboration, those two seem like they encompass what the group does.
I mean, I think that's a very useful, pertinent observation, Jason. I mean, I imagine, well, why do we want a mission statement? Was one of the questions I was asking. And I think one of the reasons we want a mission statement is that there's the possibility that the type of work we're doing becomes something that others want to join in with and join in on. And my sense is that one of the core reasons to have a mission statement is they can see what it is whether they're in alignment with who we are and what we want and what we're doing. And it seems that what we're actually doing in terms of the particulars is something that you were speaking to very specifically there, and I think probably something we don't want to lose sight of.
To add to that, something I thought of when you were saying that is also so that others have a concrete narrative to embrace. Like they really actually, you know, hearkening to what you're saying, know what we stand for and stuff like that. Because, like for instance, my friend Jesse Stevens in Maine, you may have seen him, Jason, but he is wanting to, and my friend Aaron Parker, who's also in Maine, they have started back up the Maine Tree Crop Alliance, and they're interested to do something similar to what we're doing. So he's been talking to me and looking at what we've been up to. So just an example.
I think we should probably spend about 5 more minutes just on the mission statement activity here, and then move on to the more, you know, administrative part about what ASN is. But does anyone have anything to say about any of just working towards our mission statement? Any other thoughts? Yeah.
I think it'd be productive to all get some feedback on that list. You know, I'm curious what your thoughts as a group, what people think about this list, and if we could, you know, it's a lot of things there, and maybe we could funnel that down to a couple more things.
Sure. Yeah. We could do the same thing. Everyone pick pick 2 of these. Pick 2 of these, and then we're going to do a tally mark to see where the group's thought is leaning. Do you want to say something, G?
No, sorry.
Okay. You want me to read them out loud? Okay.
You guys?
To promote, to support, to enhance, to steward, to establish, to grow, to encourage, to educate, to advance, to assist, to protect, to collaborate, to connect, to weave, to provide, to foster, to collect, and to facilitate.
We experiment with like some star voting action here, like some like.
I don't know how to do that.
Well, it's just like instead of we vote for a couple.
Yeah.
And then.
Sure. Yeah, like two or three.
I don't know how you guys did that.
Maybe we just go down the list and like raise our hand if we like it. It seems so good.
Who likes to promote?
Well, how many votes do we have?
You have 2. Okay. 2 votes.
So I'll pick 2.
To promote.
Is that to promote biodiversity or just to promote? Okay.
So just the first. I'm sorry, guys. To promote.
We've got to protect, preserve, and promote further down below. Maybe we could take that one off.
Okay. To support. To enhance. To steward. To establish. Oh, did you have steward?
Yeah, steward, yeah.
To establish. To grow. To encourage. And speak up on the computer if if you want your vote. To encourage, to educate. 3.
No, I'm just scratching my head.
I wasn't counting.
Oh, I raised my hand earlier for facilitate.
Okay.
In case that didn't get seen.
That's
Thanks.
To advance, to assist, to protect.
What, to protect, preserve, and promote? Or?
Protect is the same as steward, I believe.
No, it isn't.
You don't think?
No.
Well, we can vote for which one we like the best. So protect, preserve, promote. So these should be separated. Just to protect, to preserve, to promote, to collaborate, to connect.
Are we going to connect food and communities, or
just to connect?
Okay, in that case, put me down for collaborate.
To weave.
It's 3 weavers.
Actually, take me off collaborate and put me down for weave. I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
4 weavers.
That was a good.
How about over there?
To provide. To foster. To collect, to share, to facilitate. Did everyone vote?
Facilitate, Jason.
Yeah, I wanted to vote for that, and I've got 1 vote left, so I'll throw in with weave too. That's a good word.
That's the most interesting verb on here. Really.
Yeah. Andrew, did you vote?
I was throwing a couple hands up there, but I don't know how it all. I kind of lost track. Weave is good, and I like protect, or maybe preserve.
What about steward? Is that similar?
Seems to encapsulate both of those.
Yeah. Put me down for steward.
I love this. This is the plant and the people. So we're stewarding plants and weaving people with those plants.
That's good.
No, steward is 6.
Either way, they're
Every
at the
time
top
you
of the
switch
list.
it, I'm just gonna add it up more. Okay. Well, I think that's really telling and like a good starting point. But to weave and to steward, those are activities that I could get behind.
Are we, just a quick reference, are we calling it today at 4 o'clock today?
I kind of have to. I have a dinner party.
Yeah.
After this,
I would suggest using this as the end of our group think and move on to more business stuff.
So this is completing our visioning for today. Okay, so the way we'll proceed presumably is you've got a bunch of photographs you could forward me maybe.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna post tonight the photographs that I've taken from these 3 documents. I'm also going to, Andrew, if you can email me your mission statement, whatever it is, or
Facebook. I sent you a picture of it.
Yeah, you can send it to me on Facebook or on message on my phone.
Yeah. And then you want to put that on.
And then I'm gonna add all of these written mission statements as they're written to a Google document and make that document public, and I'll publish the link with the pictures on Facebook.
Okay, and then would I come in and try and make a stab at what exactly would I try and do? Would I try and come up with 3 mission statements? Is that the point?
I think I think that would be a good idea if you and like 1 or 2 other people worked together to create drafts that you can bring to the group next time, and just have like a concrete draft or 2 depending on where you get that then the group can be like, I can get behind this, except I want that wording changed, or that's would make sense to me.
All right. Well, what I'll endeavour to do is maybe come up with 3 different statements, and we'll post it to the face pants machine and see how it goes from there. And
The value too in that having this in the Google document with the pictures is that people can then read everything together and just either dump whatever new mission state ideas or mission statements that you have on the Facebook in a Facebook post or a Facebook message underneath that post, or add it underneath to I'll make another section on the Google Doc, and you can add it under there, so you can begin to synthesize it, and everybody will begin to synthesize this stuff, and then we can figure out where we are, because I suspect that we're going to find, once we have all this distillation together, we're going to have get more coherent.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it might be good too to put these out in a before we leave, if we can put these stickers out. So I'll take a picture of this too.
Yeah, sure.
Because this was an important process.
We can play with these a little bit at the end, but for the moment, so it's Nicholas is going to work on editing and distilling. Is there anyone else that's going to be part of that process?
I mean, I'll just take a first stab
Yeah.
and give something that people can then work off.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not attached. I just think it'd be nice. People probably like to have something that they can then use to go on with. Yeah.
But the Google Doc might want to tweak who all can edit, because it just, I mean, if you're putting it out to the whole group, that's
No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to put it as public, and then
viewable, not editable.
And what's that?
Viewable,
Yeah,
but
public
not
and not editable. But Oliver, you pretty much have a list of people that I've been giving you emails, and you have email addresses. So maybe you can just add those to the edit, and if anybody else wants to edit, add a message. If you want to edit the doc, just message your Google Docs address to Oliver on Facebook.
I would say read it on Google, and if you want to make contributions, throw it into the Facebook thread.
Yeah, I would limit the number of people that can play with that document to people that have been involved in this process.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Cool. I think everyone's on the same page with how that's going to work on the internet.
I'm not, simply because sometimes it can be difficult to see whether updates happen on a Google document, but it's pretty easy to see when things are coming in on a thread, on a Facebook thread. So I would say if you are going to make for example, if you are going to make an addition to the Google Doc, set it in the Facebook thread, because that's where I'm going to be spending most of my time.
You can add comments to the.
Yeah, there's comments, and you can also track changes, but I would say don't delete anything. But if you want to add,
I will post everybody's distillations of ideas. I will post that in another color.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I think we can figure it out outside of this meeting space, and we can move along. But yeah.
I'm happy as long as we have the flexibility to change our approach if it is needed.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, great job, everybody. Fantastic.
All right.
I don't have much to say about the next part. I did a little bit of work writing down what I'm aware of with cooperatives, but I'm fairly new to this group, so it's kind of up to you guys about where to take the direction.
Yeah, so I had my husband read this that you sent, and he said, good job, by the way, because he's done a lot of this I tried to get him to come. It's like the one football game he wants to watch of the year. So anyway, he said it was well done, because that's basically the conclusions that he's come to in helping both nonprofits, and then he set up our LLC for our business and our farm. And he asked me to sort of just explain what it is that everybody does here, and he felt like that the cooperative model would probably work best for this group. And that was just his opinion from having, done his own research in the past. He said that might be the best model for this group.
Yeah, Chris contributed to the document too, I want to say.
Oh, okay, well,
he
good
was
job, Chris.
able to bring his expertise or history with the organization. Well,
And
cool.
Also organizational design. So there is, can I borrow this real quick?
Yeah. I just wanted to.
There is under Shelley, both Shelley and I put a lot of resource links. Don't let it overwhelm you. But I tried to be, and I know Shelley did, try to be as comprehensive under the resources. But there are obviously different ways to organize this organization, and currently we are ad hoc, which has worked for now, but we're at the point where we get so much funding per year that whoever holds that funding is going to incur tax from the IRS, unfortunately. And I stand with Nick in the sense that I don't like paper pushing and the way where our society's gone with all that. And I agree that there is concern that it can at times detract from the authentic mission. But I do know that as it stands, if we were to get sued, God forbid, or if sued in civil court, or have legal criminal charges proceedings, the IRS or prosecutor would not, and the court system itself would not care at all about our what's called what we would call like handshake agreements that we have amongst each other, and they would look at who had the proceedings, as in who's holding the money. So right now, Rebecca would get would be the one that would end up with legal liability, because, for instance, just on the tax liability itself, Rebecca would be seen as the person who was gaining the proceeds or the benefit from this organization, and the IRS would see this organization as a for-profit organization, taxable, and all that shit. And so we, in my opinion, and my family longtime friend and family accountant Zoe Beck, who will probably help us in some regard. Basically, we need to structure as something, again, to basically shield us from liability, and also to protect our the money that their communities are collaboratively putting in from getting taxed. And there's several ways to go about that. There's basically there are we didn't even put it down. Shelley made a big push on this document, and then I edited it. But there are a number of different organizations, and we don't really fit in with C Corp, S Corp, partnerships. So I didn't write that down.
Yeah, I didn't even include that.
Yeah.
These 3 or 4 options seem like the realistic ones.
We can. What seems to be realistic, as echoing what Shelley just said, was what I would call a vanilla nonprofit or a vanilla LLC, as in just a normally filed one of those, or a cooperative. The LLC, an LLC or nonprofit in the articles of incorporation, we can file a supplemental that shows that we have we have chosen in our articles of incorporation cooperative bylaws. We can also register as what's called, I believe, an unassociated or unincorporated associative cooperative. That's a separate thing, and I'm trying to understand the law around that.
But then the standard way to apply as a cooperative is just a cooperative corporation.
That too.
Which operates kind of like a C or S corp.
Right. Yeah. Then there is that. There in each state, it goes from state to state, and one thing that we would need to make sure is that there is at least with Washington currently, and I believe there's parity with between the laws for Washington and Oregon.
Well, regardless, it would just, the co-op would fall under the law of the state it was registered in, wouldn't it? Even if an activity. Well, that's pretty detailed. I don't think we gotta go there though.
We don't have to go there too much, but I do want to say that due to the interstate nature of us working with Washington, there might be some issues, and I need to explore. I need to explore that, and that is something. I'm just putting it out there, not discussing it any more than that.
That could be one of those ways that we could fly under the radar, and like, who really cares if we're also operating in Washington, you know? So with these things, like, you can be under the radar in certain capacities, but still like own a thing together. What else? What about everybody else in the room? So Margie put her 2 cents in. Chris, anybody else have discussion around it?
Go ahead.
I think my again, it's not so much. I'm not. It isn't a nitpick. It's more, and it's certainly not a criticism, but it's more of a fundamental concern I have, which is that I think I used the example when I wrote to you. I was saying that I've been involved in, for example, community nurseries for years, and what I basically found is that pulling together a free effort and giving out a bunch of plants and hanging a sign on the front that says community nursery doesn't make it a community nursery. It makes it a nursery with a sign outside that says community nursery. Actually making a community nursery for real, a nursery by the community and for the community, is something completely different. It's about something that's real and relational, rather than an image and an idea and spectacle. And my fear is that as we move towards an organizational construct, we're moving towards something that's more about a spectacle defining how we behave, rather than the reality of what we fundamentally aspire to, or at least the whole fundamental impulse of the ASN in the first place, which is to get beyond the notion of the propagation fair and back to personal, unmediated relationships that count. That's where the truth comes in, that's where the beauty comes in, that's where the realness comes in. So for me, the concern is, yes, of course, it seems as though it's time for an organizational metaphor to be involved, but at the same time, I think it's really important that we not assume that organizing a bank account is necessarily the same as organizing the group, or at least replaces or as an attempt to subsume what we're fundamentally about, which is about immediate primary personal connection with people and with plants, and that relatedness being what's at the heart of stuff.
That's definitely.
Yeah.
So here's a thought. The cons here that were listed for under the radar are liability and tax risks for organizers and unscalable. And from what I can tell, the way it's going so far, those are very legitimate concerns, because there's a bank account with thousands of dollars in it, and things are coming through the centralized point. with the concerns that we've talked about. So I think that it would either need to become some form of organization or undergo a decentralization past where it's at now. I'm not sure what the practicalities of that would look like, but potentially things like the individual propagation fairs being responsible for their money in association with maybe a church or a school or whatever host it's at, and pulling together bulk orders of root stock collaboratively, and each person sends in a check for part of it or whatever, so that it seems to me that there's centralization that's occurring. And if that centralization is important and useful, then there needs to be an organization. But if that centralization isn't critical, then maybe it gets put back towards decentralization, and then it could be not under the radar so much as just not necessary.
One way I kind of view that is, well, actually never, I think you said it really well, Jason.
Oh, I'd love to hear what your thoughts too.
Well, yeah, well, if the propagation fairs are collecting money between themselves, us as the Agrarian Sharing Network could just not do that, and then just send the checks in to the fruit stuff and stuff. Like, we just steer away from money. But I also would add that, like, the more legitimate that we are, maybe as an organization, the more that we can tap into, like, the more that we can, like, be involved with the other organizational entities.
I want to get everybody's voice in because it's a pretty decisive thing. But when we're speaking, is there any way that, like, people can just say which way you're leaning? Like, we kind of have to go through. We have to pick one of these. So, Chris, what's your? You've already talked about this. So just between 1, 2, or 3.
We're cooperative, and I don't think that, and to hearken to Nick's discussion, which is similar concerns I have, about the way the entire society is going.
Yeah. And before we get too deep into that,
I'm not going deep. I'm just prefacing.
Okay. I just wanted, like, where's your compass?
Yeah, and I'm prefacing that to say that I believe it must be, we're going to organize, it must be a cooperative, because that allows it to not be usurped, and it allows it to continue to be in the ad hoc spirit of what we have always been about and what I hope we always are about. So I think that we do need some sort of cooperative structure.
Okay. Thank you. Keegan, where's your compass on this issue?
Cooperative.
Where are you standing on this issue, Oliver?
Oh, I'm like 50-50 with cooperative and off the radar. I mean, I keep leaning towards off the radar because that's just, yeah. I think actually I'm 75-25 off the radar.
Cool. Brendan?
I would be more like 75-25 as cooperative to under the radar.
What do you think, Kev?
Under the radar has its points, but there is that risk. And listening to you, that would be pretty much the only way we could survive under the radar, is to decentralize it completely, have a bunch of different very small bank accounts that don't really count for anything, and it would make it much more difficult to pool resources for, like, rootstock holders and all of that. So I'm leaning towards cooperative as the most flexible, adaptable method to continue.
And just I briefly want to say that I believe that's under $500.
Yeah, because there's also, like, the nonprofit, the structure and the costs start running up really fast.
Yeah, and can I just say something about that? Is that this seems really elaborate, and I've been a part of another nonprofit for 16 years, and it is very simple and very easy and very cooperative, and it's not as elaborate as this might seem. But the benefits of a nonprofit is that is people donate money because they see that you're a structure or that you have an entity, and then they want to give. And we have people just come out of the blue and be like, we want to help you promote this.
Okay, so I thought about that as well, but so the question that I have is, how much money do we want? Do we want big donations?
Right.
Do we want big grants? We get a lot of just little donations as is, and we are pretty flush for our demands. We're pretty Spartan in our demands, and so I don't think we need to be asking for hundreds of dollars from donors to continue. I think getting that $5 here and there is more in tune with our ethos than going asking for, hey, look at us, give us money.
Which, like,
How
politics
about,
taints.
before we discuss too much, how about you fellas on the computer? What do you think?
I would say I'm kind of 50-50 between nonprofit and cooperative. Being new to this group, but not to this mission, and even though we're defining that, but it seems there's a lot of potential to expand what we're doing, and having some more funds to support, I think really mainly administration of the group as a whole can come into play. Different nonprofits I've worked at, running a group by volunteers is a slippery slope. So in one way, I'd like to see this expand and support those who are really the driving force behind it as well. So kind of need to learn more a little bit about the cooperative, but the nonprofit aspect of getting donations can help a lot, even if they're small amounts. So
I would like to just
How about there's another, did you mention what you preferred?
No, I didn't. I think that it should go one way or the other, but I really don't have enough a sense of how it works to be able to say which I think it should go in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Where's your compass here?
Mine leans more towards a decentralized mode. Doing a distributive network of propagation fairs is much harder than doing one event. If there's a way of developing a structure that mirrors that distributed network, I'd be keen to see that happen. If it's not practical, it's simply not practical. Maybe there's a hybrid approach that can marry a cooperative function with a distributed network of bank accounts, for example. I don't know. Maybe that's something that can be done. But I'm not. I don't know enough to stand definitively.
Two things I just did want to say, that just to elucidate everybody, that a cooperative can be a standalone entity, but a lot of people actually, for instance, will use a limited liability corporation, which is a bit of a hybrid between a partnership and a small corporation entity, an S-corp entity, and will add basically cooperative bylaws when they do their articles of incorporation, and they tell the state, we're creating this entity. They'll add cooperative bylaws to an LLC, or they'll add cooperative bylaws to a nonprofit. But there's also in the state of Oregon, in many states, there is the cooperative, there is what's called a cooperative organization, which is structured a bit, I believe, like an S-corp. And then there is also the unassociated cooperative association, which is, I believe, also allowed in this state, and I don't know exactly how that works. And then secondly, we're already at a point where Wubby basically has received enough money that there is some kind of obligation
legally that I mean, it's in her bank account, so it's there, it's registered with the government that it's there in a bank account. So already we're at a point where we should, for the sake of Wubbies, figure out some way to reconcile that for her. I believe she may have a tax obligation. Actually, I believe she does have a tax obligation with that. We might be able to dodge it.
She
just
could
dodge
really
it.
attempt to just not claim that, you know, like that probably would be fine. But
It will probably just fall under the radar.
I think I do want to put in.
Government from the bank.
Sure.
Yeah, and as
That
long as
they
it's
don't-
under 10,000, they don't really question.
Yeah, but just to put in my 2 cents, and I think it would be really interesting if we just attempted to vote maybe by the end of the day, just to get, maybe it's not the definitive, but just like testing the waters here. But it seems like firstly we need to determine if we're going to move forward to try to turn this group into a legal entity or not. And if we do want to formalize something, then there's the discussion of what is it, nonprofit or co-op, what type of co-op. But I think that clarifies the discussion more at that point. I think we can, just to expose my bias, I think we can preserve our decentralization and even provide an umbrella safety net for these individual groups that we're trying to support as a whole by cooperating. I'm concerned that if we say we're not going to formalize and put more burden on the neighborhood individualized groups, then we're basically passing the buck down to now all these liability and tax issues are somebody else's problem. But I believe this group is really capable of doing, coming together to officially govern an entity that's recognized by the state. A lot of us have an LLC or have worked with a nonprofit, so there is experience with this kind of thing in the room. And my sense is that this group could be good at meeting the mission, not changing the fundamentals, while also creating a formal structure that protects the people who are wanting to give so much. And I think co-ops are awesome, by the way. I think they really do exist to serve members, and I think they're super radical and awesome. And I think looking towards something like that could actually be an opportunity for this group, not just like donations and things like that, although I'm not sure how that works with co-ops, but just by creating a little bit of structure, which doesn't need to be a bad thing, but a little bit of structure can actually create a container for even more, not narrowed organization, but deeper. So it can create, I don't know, I think it can like hold the mission even for longevity. That's what I have to say about that.
So do we want to do a vote since we're almost?
Sure. Okay, so the first question would be, do we formalize or do we operate off the radar? And so the statement would be, who wants this group to become, to register with the state of Oregon as some sort of entity? Your options are, I want that, I'm neutral but not gonna block it, or I don't think we should do that. So who thinks that this group should register with the state of Oregon?
Register meaning
As a co-op, as any of those things, as a co-op, as a LLC, as a nonprofit. So we have. We have.
That's a very big thumb on that screen, mate. You got it right in front of the camera. No doubt where you stand. Yes.
Okay, so there's conditions. I see.
Passionately neutral.
God, fickle, man.
So we have 3 neutral, And we have 3 neutral, no one's blocking it, and everyone else is for it. Which
How many is yes?
8 yes. So we haven't come up with our terms or how we make agreements, but let me flip that question around. Who thinks that we should not register with the state of Oregon? Who thinks we should fly under the radar?
Like just continue as is.
Continue as is.
Continue as is. Who is for not
changing it? Hold on, you're framing.
Now we're voting for the opposite thing.
Question, right?
We're voting for the opposite thing. So
we do nothing.
Do nothing. Who thinks we should fly under the radar and as we have been?
And not register as a legal entity at all.
That thumb is big.
We're trying to clarify those neutral votes.
It's a big one.
Okay, so I'm just going to say that's not an option, and we need to move forward with some sort of. We need to formalize with the state.
What was no?
How
many was no?
There are at least 3 thumbs down.
4. Can we do that one more time just so I can get an official count?
Oh my god.
So how many?
No, we're not registering. There's 1. Stop it. Keep it. I'm gonna rip that thumb off.
Now I know how guys feel when they take their IPOs public and make billions of dollars and get kicked out.
So that's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 neutrals and 3 or 4 blocks. And it's
5 blocks.
5 blocks. Yeah, this is a block.
So 5 neutral, 5 block, and then what was yes? How many yes?
For the first one, it was 8 and 3.
How many people said that we should continue as is?
Nobody.
Okay.
0.
So that's a great direction. I think that's a really solid conclusion to make by the end of our meeting. And
there were 6 neutral.
Nobody's clearly super supportive for staying.
so then the next step is like, what are we going to become? And we don't have time to determine that today.
Well, I was totally confused by that last vote.
Sure.
I just want to say, framing, I thought we made a vote. It was clear what we were doing, and then there was a second vote.
So I framed the question 2 ways because we didn't have, that wasn't a definitive vote. This is what we're going to do, is more testing the waters. So I framed the question 1 way: should we register with the state to see how it landed? And then I asked for a second. I asked the group a second question, which is like, should we not register with the state? So
there's a lot of enthusiasm for doing it. I would say that there's not any enthusiasm, or there's not that same amount of, on the other side of the, there's not people that are very wholeheartedly like no. So
there's a yes and no question. How much enthusiasm is there for the no in the first answer?
I'm still
okay.
Too
Well, I
much
just
for
wanna
my
say-
small brain.
Like clarification of where the no's in the first question.
How strong the no was. And I think the group's temperature is that we need to formalize with the state, but what we don't know is the structure that's going to take. So I will ask you guys, how are we going to figure that out? Or do you want to do another vote, or are we going to do that next time? Co-op, LLC, nonprofit.
maybe we should think on that a little bit. I would also say, if we are being inclusive, if anybody is like against incorporating, like maybe with the incorporation, how do we support people that are like not into it? Also, if they want to do their own thing, so it's not like, okay, well, you're on your own then.
There's a point when you have a planning committee that it shows up and is here to make decisions and have their voice be heard, and you do create a container. And if there's people that never ever want to be part of anything that has to do with anything official, they don't have to be part of the group.
That's what I think that second vote was for. It was showing if there was 3 or 4 people that were no, or I mean, if they said yes, I do not want to become formalized, then we'd have to address those concerns, I think. But
why wouldn't that have been the same as a block in the first vote, for example?
but no one blocked it in the first vote.
There are 3
True. And I see what you're saying, Nick. Yeah.
options in how to read that is 3 sideways is equal to a block. And so I think, am I reading this right? That your second question was, are those 3 sideways really equal to a block, or are they more just neutral? It's not.
Yeah.
So basically, we established that there's nobody affiliated with our group who absolutely wants to leave things as they are. And I think we all agree on that.
That's here, and that was your point, right, Keegan? Is that there's people who aren't here in the room that might be.
That's not mine was not. I'm agreed. It was I'll go along.
Exactly.
And that second
But
question
that's not
was: are you unequivocally want to keep things as they are? And your vote was still neutral. So it was like if you had said yes, unequivocally, don't change anything, that would have been okay. We need to address that. But I think you were like, yeah, I'm still ambivalent.
Do you want to change that? I mean,
No. I mean, in a sense, it's my concerns. I've spoken my concerns. Have been heard. I can live with the wisdom of the group. So.
I really wish hope we could really have your thought on that in a formalized document or something somewhere, so that I can go back and revisit it. I think that's a super important point that you brought up to not get caught up in that if the collaborative can be just as bare bones as possible, so it's only.
Well, it strikes me. I mean, it's again, it's one of the things I said is that whether or if the bank account wasn't the issue here, would we be making this step?
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
However, we can't really move forward without exposing whoever holds the money to some potential legal exposure.
And whoever's
without
gonna
making
recommend
the tax
that.
liability. Yeah.
Unless we'd explored another novel approach, which it doesn't seem we.
Maybe in the future, but at some point, starting in January, we have to get down to the nuts and bolts of planning how we're actually going to facilitate these propagation fairs.
One other thing is multiple people holding multiple bank accounts. Seems like it could work. But one concern I would have is from a legal perspective that an argument could be raised that's actually something called structuring, which is where people
Rico would come after us.
Right. Where people thanks, Rod. Where people what's the term? Where people conspire to
get around
get around taxation and.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call those votes that we made just at faith. That's what happened. And we need to figure out how to decide. So maybe there's more research that goes into these 3 options.
Resources.
What are your top 3 that we all need to look at?
I would suggest that we just kind of go through this list because I don't really have a top 3, and they're different people have different skill sets, and I feel that there are different resources that Shelley and I have put in here that speak to different people in different ways. There's some, for instance, I don't mind reading the entire chapter 62 on OregonLaws.com to find out the actual legal meaning behind these things.
That's because you're a very sick individual.
And you know what? So Chris and I have been able to geek out over that shit because I like reading all that stuff too and understanding it. And the point of this kind of document really is to boil it down for people who don't want to go through all those links that we did. So
there's one that is
we should
towards the bottom.
Chris, what you and I should do is do a little next step, send it out with everybody. What I would say is that this is an organizing committee, and define that organizing committee. And we've invited people who want to participate to have their voices heard. We can continue to offer that invite, but there's a form. This is a committee, and like legally, in order to make one of these organizations happen, 5 people are going to need to put their name on something. So
there are 2. The link number 2 at institute.coop, choice of entity. That kind of explains different types of cooperatives. How people make different cooperative entities. And then the one at down in the middle, that's at address www.uwcc.wisc.edu. That's from Wisconsin University, and
right at the corner.
that compares different business structures, and I found that document to be pretty open.
So one other thing, the Small Business Development Center through LCC is very, very helpful for things like this. I went through them for making my little partnership corporation, and I could check in with them on these different structures and like fill them in. It's free consultation.
Yeah, that's great. They helped us too.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Cool. And I would say, if you're needing support around this process, please put it up to the group and let us know what we can do to support you. Which is, it's an interesting adventure, and it may be a difficult and awkward process from time to time. So please be clear about setting what your needs are around that.
It sounds like your partner.
What's that?
It sounds like your partner would be a good resource for this as well.
Yeah, he did recommend, which I didn't want to mention just because I cringe a little bit, is he said if you have enough money, you might consult an attorney that deals with this kinds of stuff. So there's this one really great attorney that helped the Oregon Biodynamic Group, helped us with our mission statement, with our bylaws, all that kind of stuff, and it was like 1 or 2 hours. It was $250 an hour, but he helps the Legal Defense Fund for small farms, and so that's why we chose him. But that's an option. I do have one question though: is how does this group deal with liability insurance? Because I know that that's just like a thing in this day and age. And when we held our event at the Armory requires whoever rents it to have insurance, and so we just used our farmers market insurance. Like our local farmers market was willing to sponsor Agrarian Sharing Network, but is that an issue in other places?
The last 4 years, I've just been adding it as a rider onto my private insurance, my private business insurance. So I'm really glad nothing happened.
Yeah.
No, that was just for one event or for all?
No, that was the 2 at the Whitaker and River Road.
Okay.
Yeah. That seems like it might be a really good example of where decentralization has been working, and we might want to continue. Because if the organization starts to do liability insurance, that would be really, really convenient for the propagation fairs. But if it's been working without that, that's going to start to be more money and more ways that the central thing can break. So as we move forward, we might want to look at things that the central body hasn't done before and say, we're not going to do these things because we haven't had to. That could be a protection against scope creep.
Against what, I'm sorry?
Scope creep.
Scope creep, yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's like, for example, the whole notion of putting the money down is something that pushes responsibility, toward the local level as well as actually engagement. So I think my sense is that continuing in that regard is definitely something we want to do.
One other thing, having some sort of structure that is registered, where we have a treasurer that's registered and stuff. If the treasurer walks off with cash, we actually can say, like, we have a treasurer, they walked off with the cash, we had this much cash, legal responsibility. Right now, it's kind of like
insurance policy pays for it. Right?
Yeah, but it's kind of a he said, she said thing.
Well, do we want to keep having this conversation? We're 15 minutes past the close.
Yeah, do you think get rolling. So
I
if you
should
need a
get-
lift,
I should get
I
going.
just, yeah, when if we start to talk about insurance, it's like the last thing.
Yeah, let's-
Somebody's gonna get cranky. Not saying it's me.
All right. It seems as though we've reached. It seems as though we've got a lot of good work done today. Yeah, thank you so much for your participation.
To everybody.
And then, Jason, maybe I could just check in with you about maybe we could put this video up on our YouTube channel, and I'll check in with you about that.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, Andrew. Nice to see you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Andrew, send me that some way, somehow, text message or whatever, what you got.
I sent it to you. Yeah, it's on your phone.
Yeah, it's on where?
I sent it to your phone. Text message.
Bye.
Wait, who's got my
Talk
check?
soon. Bye.
Bye-bye. Be well.